Everyone, welcome to Plants and Politics. So, as you guys know by now, Kyle Rittenhouse was acquitted on all charges. I have a lot of thoughts that I wanted to share about this. As you can imagine, I think it's number one, abhorrent that the judge dropped the illegal weapons charge against him. Everything, in my opinion, hinged on that one charge, because if Rittenhouse didn't have a weapon that night, no one would have been killed. As a child, he should not have been allowed to even attend that event. So his mother should absolutely be sued and possibly even charged for negligence. And he had no right to be in possession of a weapon. Absolutely none. So I hope that the families of the deceased file lawsuits against Rittenhouse and his mother, because there's got to be justice. There's got to be somebody who stands up and says, we're not going to let this happen again. Having said that, I think the prosecutor did a piss poor job, and the judge was clearly biased as fuck. I mean, it was so blatant, it's not even funny. But the prosecutor, in my opinion, lost this case even before the trial began. He lost, in my opinion, when he failed to introduce evidence about Rittenhouse's interactions with the Proud Bigots and his flashing of the white supremacist hand gesture. The judge claimed that he had never even heard of the Proud Boys, which is a bunch of BS. I don't believe him. How could you have lived through January 6th and not heard of the Proud Boys when they were some of the first to break police lines and literally bash in the windows and break into the Capitol? And they were some of the first people arrested. But the prosecutor tried to convince him that the Proud Boys were dangerous by submitting an article, a newspaper article that I believe was from Portland, Oregon, like from all of the clashes that BLM and the Proud Boys were having in Portland, Oregon. Really? How about you submit documentation showing that the Proud Bigots have been named as a terrorist organization by the Canadian government? Maybe that might have had some effect. Maybe that would have held some sway with this judge. And then in pretrial hearings, when the judge ruled that the three men who Rittenhouse shot couldn't be referred to as victims, but they could be referred to as looters and rioters, that's when I knew this was a foregone conclusion. This was hopeless. Rittenhouse was going to walk. He was making it so utterly and completely slanted in Rittenhouse's favor. And here's the deal. We can litigate, we can detail the criminal history of the two men who were murdered. There's no doubt that Rosenbaum especially was a massive piece of human excrement. He sexually abused several young boys when he was 19 years old. That's a fact. He was also a very damaged individual who was himself a victim of daily, almost daily as it's reported, sexual assault at the hands of his stepfather. So he was both victim and victimizer, which is very common. So maybe it's time that people on both sides of the aisle stop using sexual assault and the Me Too movement as a political football and start treating it like the global pandemic that it is. Because Rosenbaum was the poster child for how poorly our mental health and judicial systems operate in this country and how they fail children and victims of sexual assault in the United States and around the world. It's not just about sex. Until people get that through their head, nothing's going to change. It destroys lives, and it can lead to a cycle of self-harm, violence against others, and more sexual assault. As for Anthony Huber, obviously, at some point in his life, he was suffering with some sort of mental illness because he choked his younger brother and he threatened his mother with a knife. And they were trying to call the police to get him some help at that time. However, for the right to use that as an excuse for Kyle Rittenhouse's actions is hypocritical, it's ignorant, and it further verifies their desire for authoritarianism. If that's the world that they wish to have, then many of the people who were at the Capitol on January 6th deserve to be shot and killed, including Ashley Babbitt, who reportedly went after her husband's ex-girlfriend and purposely rammed into her vehicle. So if you want to hold up people's past crimes as a reason for why they should be shot now for throwing a plastic bag, go for it. But she was breaking into a federal building. She was told to stop. She was told she was not allowed in. She did it anyway. She was carrying a backpack that could have had weapons in it, could have had a bomb for all they know. And she didn't follow orders. She climbed through a broken window. So there you go. Which is it? And, plenty of Trump's Capitol terrorists have lengthy criminal histories filled with pedophilia, with violent crimes against both men and women. So by that logic, they all deserve to die. And there's no need for them to be judged by a jury of their peers. If that's the logic you want to use, then I guess we should apply it across the board. So why are they whining and crying about how these people are being treated in prison? I mean, under Rittenhouse logic, it's completely justified that the January 6th prisoners should be treated horribly. People like Ryan Samsel, right? It's reported that he got his jaw busted, that he's now having seizures from being beaten by the officers in jail. So under the Rittenhouse logic, what's the problem? Vigilante justice for thee, but not for me. And let's remember, too, Rosenbaum had already been judged by a jury of his peers. He served time in prison for his crimes. He had also just been released from a mental facility mere hours before he was shot and killed. Clearly, he was not ready to be released. So I hope that someone will look into that matter, because clearly the facility did not do their job. Rosenbaum was, by all accounts, if you look at the videos, he was completely unhinged that night. He had no business being out on the street. He had no business being released from that mental facility. Now, having said that, like I said before, he didn't have a weapon. He threw a plastic bag at Rittenhouse. And not to state the obvious, but no one appointed Rittenhouse to be judge, jury, and executioner. He also had no knowledge of either Rosenbaum or Huber's past and any crimes that they may have committed, any history when he shot them. And here's the thing. I can understand if Rittenhouse felt threatened, right? Rosenbaum, according to multiple people, threatened to kill him and others if he got them alone that night. And that's, like I said, it's corroborated by multiple people. However, Rittenhouse had no problem physically, violently beating a teenage girl when she got into a fight with his sister. Where was the tough guy on August 25th of last year? He can beat up a girl, but he can't take on a mentally disturbed man, unarmed, armed with a paper bag, with a plastic bag. This is the guy that the right wants to hold up as a hero, a guy who can, beat up young girls, punch them in the head, but then can't take on a man, an unarmed man. And that's not in dispute. That is on video. You can go look it up on YouTube right now. There's a video of Rittenhouse in his Crocs and socks. Should have been arrested for crimes of fashion alone. Punching this girl, teenage girl. As I said, I can understand him feeling fearful, but I go back to the point that if he didn't have a weapon on him, he would have had to take some other sort of action, which would have likely resulted in some bodily injury, but it's very likely that no one would be dead. And there are videos out there showing that other BLM protesters were trying to get Rosenbaum under control. They didn't like the way he was acting either. So couldn't Rittenhouse have yelled for help? Also, I mean, there were plenty of other counter protesters out there, also with weapons to protect him. But here we are. In any case, the jury has spoken. I think it's a bunch of BS, but here's why the right shouldn't necessarily celebrate this decision. This sets a precedent, but that precedent will apply to all Americans. Take, for instance, the case against BLM protester Tatiana Turner. Turner is a 40-year-old Long Beach resident. She has been charged with 13 felonies, including attempted murder. She first hit counter protesters with her car at a Yorba Linda rally. She was then arrested and charged after that for allegedly using a metal rod to beat two men after other protesters had attacked them and they were lying on the ground. So Turner has pleaded not guilty, and her attorney says she feared for her life when she hit the Trump supporters with her car because she saw people with guns and her car was surrounded. And again, that part is not in dispute. There's actual video evidence of this incident. Her car was surrounded on all sides by counter protesters wearing and carrying Trump paraphernalia. And there were Proud Boys there too. And you could easily hear someone say something to the effect of, "You're not getting out of here." Now, whether or not that was a threat or if they were just merely making an observation, that's up for the jury to decide. But she was a woman alone in a parking lot of a library near the site of the protest. And Trump supporters had been aggressive that day. They had been very aggressive with the BLM supporters all day. I know people who live there. I know what went down. They crossed the highway to get to the BLM protesters. They got in the faces of the BLM protesters, not the other way around. So what if she uses the Rittenhouse defense? Will the right be okay with that? I mean, the Trump supporters clearly followed her to her car and they had her surrounded. And we know for a fact that some people in attendance had weapons because that's the reason the police shut the protest down that day and sent everyone home. They declared it an unlawful assembly and they said everybody's got to go. So was she justified of hitting those people with her car because she feared for her life? I guess so. I guess so. Under the Rittenhouse rules, under these new Rittenhouse guidelines of what's appropriate conduct at protests, yeah, I guess she did it in self-defense. As for the men she allegedly beat, maybe she feared for her safety in that situation too. I mean, she's a woman, it's two men. If so, then she was clearly justified. You see how that works? This is a slippery slope, and I don't think the right has fully thought this through. Anyway, guys, if I hear any more on any of this, I'll let you know. Thanks so much for watching and listening. Take care. I'll talk with you soon.